I think it is super scary. I think the only reason why we're not having chaos is because most people don't know how to use AI.
So, Ansh, welcome once again and thank you for this. It was something that I really wanted to do and see what it comes up with. But let's start our conversation with the way we started by knowing the person first and help me understand how did you become this person that you have become online? Did you know that this is going to be your identity while you were growing up and you're doing your engineering? How did all this happen?
I still feel that I'm still evolving. I don't think I've found my niche yet. I always wanted to be a filmmaker, but I was a single child, so my parents made me do engineering. कि एकलौता लड़के को डायरेक्टर थोड़ी ना बना देंगे. So I did engineering, computer science engineering, but throughout the process, I tried a lot of things. So I tried development, marketing, music, even rap, and eventually I came across UX.
Do we have some of those videos of you rapping?
So I was more towards the production side of things as to producing music. And eventually I found UX design, which is a very upcoming field. It's how you design apps and websites. And India में अभी UX का demand बहुत ज़्यादा है and supply बहुत कम है. So I knew that rather than going for a job placement जहाँ पे there is so much of competition, why not do UX जहाँ पे I can negotiate my salary. So I joined Swiggy directly after my college. And after Swiggy, I joined a startup called Zuddle, where I was their first designer responsible to make the entire thing from scratch. तो वहाँ से सीखा कि एक स्टार्टअप कैसे ग्रो होता है. आई सॉ द सीरीज ए का प्रोसेस कि कैसे आप एक प्रोडक्ट को बनाते हो. बट थ्रू आउट दिस इंटायर प्रोसेस आई रियलाइज कि यूट्यूब पे कोई डिज़ाइन नहीं सिखा रहा है, यूट्यूब पे कोई यूएक्स साइकोलॉजी नहीं सिखा रहा है, एंड देयर इज नो वे टू लर्न हाउ टू बिल्ड अ ग्रेट टेक प्रोडक्ट. सो आई स्टार्टेड मेकिंग कॉन्टेंट. And people know me because of AI content, but primarily I create design content where I teach people how to design apps and websites. Because AI content is not a niche, it's like teaching you how to Google. Abhi people feel that, oh, you know Chat-GPT, you know AI, what a big deal, but it's just going to be like YouTubing and Googling. In the next 2 to 3 years, everyone will know. In fact, people say that prompt engineering is going to be a profession. That is not true. आप जो भी अपना काम कर रहे हो उसके अंदर you will have to prompt, whether you're in finance or sales or in marketing. Just like Googling is not a profession, even prompting is not going to be a profession. So I was inherently very interested in prompting, so I started teaching that. Some videos did well and that is why people know of it. But now I really enjoy making content. I feel like distribution is key. In fact, you will see a lot of CEOs and business owners also making content because they are realizing कि marketing पे खर्चने से better है, let's make content, spend 1/10 of the amount, gain trust, gain distribution. So yeah, I'm just continuing the same thing. I haven't left my full-time job. I still have my full-time job. And in parallel, I'm doing these things and then consulting businesses on how they can use design and AI.
Right. Ansh, very interestingly, you chose these paths for yourself, probably because you saw them online, or probably, you had mentors, probably because you were going to places or hanging out with people who gave you the direction, right? Was it the case in your life because you grew up in a city, it was easier for you, you had access and you had the privilege? Or you think that this is possible for the janta that stays in tier 2, tier 3 cities?
Yeah, so I think when you are very, very young, you feel like your success is because of your hard work, but 70% of it is luck and 60 to 70% of it's privilege. So the thing is, I personally feel that a lot of these games are unfair. For a person who's living in Delhi versus a person who's living in a very remote city, the dynamics change, the economics change. So in the end, you need to figure out what do you have, what kind of cards are you dealt with, and how well can you play that hand, right? Because if you can't change the cards, then you have to change the way you play the hand. You can't quit the game, right? So what you need to do is you need to take inventory of what you have. In my case, I had immense privilege because my parents had sent me to a good school. That helped me improve my soft skills. Then I went to a good college. They paid the fee for it. I had enough money to go to Bangalore. So I think there are three core components that severely influence the trajectory of your life. Number one, your college. Number two, the city you work in after your college. And number three, your first company, your first professional experience, because that defines the way you look at jobs. My first job was great. That is why I love the corporate culture. But if I have so many friends who had a terrible internship and now they are above the idea of doing a job, they are forcing themselves to become entrepreneurs simply because their first job experience was terrible. Whereas in reality, I know so many people who have great jobs. You don't have to be necessarily an entrepreneur to live a great life.
And how important do you feel that, you said that improving your soft skills, and a lot of people come to me and tell me that, how do I make it better? How do I keep the fear aside? As I was talking to somebody before the session started, they said that, how do you do it, right? And do you think that's a currency that a lot of these students will have to develop through certain courses or something, that's available online, or talking to people, or just in general getting better to it? And do you think that the MBAs, the B schools, where they do these MBAs, actually teach them this skill more than anything else?
No, I personally feel that there are a lot of things that cannot be taught, but they can be learned, right? And Naval Ravikant says this again and again. Soft skills is a subject that you have to learn yourself. I can't teach you how to behave. I can teach you design, I can teach you coding, I can teach you prioritization, but I can't teach you tamiz or lihaz. That is something that you learn by observing. So I personally feel that there are components to your personality, and I have made a long YouTube playlist. It's literally called Improve Your Life, where I break down all of these components. But I think the most important ones are the way you speak, the way you reply, the way you negotiate. So this comes under your verbal communication. Then you also have your textual communication as to how do you communicate on text. How well do you write? How clearly do you write? Now, all of these things start with good reading. So you read something that is well written, then you start thinking clearly, then you start writing clearly, then you start speaking clearly, then you start teaching clearly. So these are the levels that you can oscillate, but it all starts with reading something that is well written. So I think that is something that you can start.
We're seeing day in and day out defects coming up. Uh, uh, you know, it has potential to cause a third world war, probably. That's what I feel, right? And in case that if we are not aware of it fully, as you said, that if we don't um really understand the power that it has, it can cause harm to us as well, right? On the ethical side, how do you see AI and its implications to be? Do you think regulations are needed in the country? And if yes, uh, how should that framework be?
I think it is super scary. I think the only reason why we're not having chaos is because most people don't know how to use AI. But if people really knew how to use AI, it's super scary, the kind of stuff that you can do. I am in the circuit, so I know the kind of terrible stuff people are sharing using these AI tools. The only fix is that governments need to take this super, super seriously. Our governments need to sit down with social media platforms. They need to sit with the people who regulate content everywhere to make sure that there are guidelines, there are specific teams to target these deepfakes and image manipulations, because the kind of harassment and the kind of cases that will skyrocket once this technology becomes accessible, it's going to be insane. Even right now, there are so many people who can Photoshop an image of you and put it on a random website, and you can't do anything about it. There is no place where you can actually fix these things quickly. And this is just one of those examples. Like, there are so many scams that are happening on WhatsApp, where they would take a voice recording of some of your friends and send you a voice note saying कि इस number पे इतने पैसे Paytm कर दो, and you would not even know. So I think governments first need to start informing themselves. Then people and families need to sit down and just understand the basics of AI in general. For example, there's a very important trick that people are sharing, that your family needs to have a code word, right? For example, if somebody phone calls you or FaceTimes you, then that word tells you whether this person is real or not. And that word can be something as random as, a golden brinjal, right? A golden brinjal. So if your mom is texting you saying that send money to this, I'm an emergency, you first ask your mom that code word. Otherwise, it could be a bot, right? So you need these identifiers to make sure that you're talking to your real parent. And it all begins with education. That is why most of our content is very in-depth and it's freely accessible. Because I want to make sure that majority of the young students educate themselves, because if young students educate themselves, then they can have these conversations at the dinner table. Because I know that their parents will not watch me. It is only their kids who will watch me, and maybe getting inspired, the kids will talk to their parents that this is what I saw.
Parents are still struggling with WhatsApp. I'm telling you. Chat-GPT and AI is too far, I think, for them right now. With respect to where we have come to with respect to AI, because it's still new, as we were all mentioning. It's been probably 12 months, not even that the common man has started talking about it, right? And we are waking up to the potentials of that as well, and that's why we are seeing creators like you coming in and filling those shoes and telling people that this is something that you probably need, right? Do you think a lot of them are doing it because it's a wave and they will sort of go somewhere else because they are probably also looking at this as an opportunity to get some views, probably to make a community, and then probably make an exit and go away and do something else?
Yeah, so that I think that is the content game. I think in content, me and every other creator is optimizing to get attention, right? Because as influencers, we get paid by other companies to sell your attention. That is how the business works. So if I make a video saying AI will take your job, and I don't do that, but like there are so many creators who would make a video like that, AI will replace designers, AI will replace video editors, and then they will make you anxious, right? And then you will click on it. We personally made sure that we don't do that, absolutely don't do that, because then if you make somebody anxious, then they will watch the video in a state of anxiety, and then nothing goes in their brain. So I know that some jobs are going to be replaced, but let's not make people anxious about it. Okay. Coming back to the topic, I feel like almost every creator is optimizing to hop on trends. There are very few creators who are legacy creators who've been in the game for like 10 years. So then they don't ride on this wave. But when it comes to beginner creators like me, we are always looking for the trend. Now, you can always hop on a trend in a very ethical manner as well. So in our case, we need to make sure that, of course, we're talking about a trend and we will eventually exit. But you can't say something which is out of proportion. You can't say something which is unnecessary. I see so many creators who are just blabbering. Like they have no clue what they're saying. And their goal is to first make you anxious and then sell you a course. And we also thought we'll sell a course, right? Every creator thinks that it's very easy money. But then we were just stuck because I personally feel that when it comes to a field like AI, you can't make a pre-recorded course because the syllabus changes every week. If I record a video on Monday, by the time it's Friday, the syllabus has changed. So we decided let's do B2B. So right now we're focusing on B2B live workshops. Sometimes we do live events, live meetups. So I think then I can change the syllabus. But I think a lot of creators are hopping on this trend of making you anxious and then selling you a pre-recorded course. Don't do that. Always go for live courses and always go with a person who you know makes sense, right? So yeah, I think people will hop on the trend and they will all exit. This is just a phase.